All right, let's tackle a question that's on pretty much everyone's mind when they start something new. Can this actually make money? Today, we're going to use beekeeping as our example, but really, this is about a simple, straightforward way for you to figure out if your project has what it takes to be profitable. Let's dive in. You know that feeling, right? You get this amazing idea for a new project, but then that little voice pops into your head and asks, yeah, but is this going to work or am I just going to waste a bunch of money? It's a totally normal fear, and it's the very first thing we need to tackle. And that's the big question, isn't it? Is the project profitable? At the end of the day, that's the bottom line. So the whole point here is to give you a simple but really powerful tool to help you answer that exact question with some real confidence. Okay, so the fancy name for this tool is an economic feasibility study. I know, that sounds super formal and maybe a little intimidating, but trust me, it's not. Just think of it like a financial roadmap. Its only job is to tell you, before you spend a single penny, if your project is more likely to make money or lose money. And here's the best part. This whole thing, this so-called study, really just boils down to three simple elements. That's it. No crazy spreadsheets, no advanced math degree needed. We just need to get a handle on three things to find our answer. All right, so let's jump into the first one, understanding your costs. And I've got to say, this is probably the most important piece of the entire puzzle. It's the foundation for everything else. If you can nail this part, you are well on your way. Now, here's a key thing to know. Not all costs are the same. We've got to break them down into two main types, fixed costs and annual costs. And really understanding the difference between these two is absolutely critical to getting this right. So what are fixed costs? Easy. Just think of them as the big stuff you have to buy once, right at the beginning. For our bee farm example, that's things like the wooden hives, or maybe the bee colonies themselves. You know, the things you buy one time and they're meant to last a good long while. Then, on the flip side, you've got your annual costs. And just like the name says, these are the things you have to pay for over and over every single year just to keep the operation running. So that'd be stuff like sugar to feed the bees, or the gas money to move the hives around. Okay, so once we've got a really good handle on all our costs, we get to move to the fun part, the money coming in. This is our second element, estimating the return. Return is just a simple word for all the money you think you're going to make. So for our bees, that's the cash from selling honey or wax or maybe even new bee colonies. Now here's a really important tip. Be conservative here. It is so easy to get excited and think you're going to sell 1,000,000 jars of honey. A huge mistake is overestimating your income. So start with a number that feels realistic, maybe even a little cautious. All right, you've got your costs, you've estimated your return. Now for the moment of truth. This is our third and final element, where we put it all together and calculate the profit. This is where we see if this great idea of ours can actually work. And you'll be happy to know the formula is super simple. It's the heart of this entire thing. First, you start with all the money you expect to make. That's your return. Then, from that number, you just subtract all the money you have to spend to make it happen. That's your costs. And that's it. What's left over? That's your profit. Return minus costs equals profit. That simple little formula is everything. It's your bottom line. Okay, so theory is one thing, but let's see how this actually works, right? We're going to walk through a quick practical example. Let's imagine we're starting a 100-hive bee farm. Now, 100 hives, that's a pretty serious operation. But what's cool is that the math we're about to do, it works exactly the same whether you have just one hive in your backyard or 1,000 of them. The principles don't change. Okay, super important note here. The prices and numbers we're about to use are just made up for this example. They're totally hypothetical. The whole power of this system is that you have to plug in the real numbers for where you live and your own currency. That's the only way to get a true picture. Now, check this out, because this is a really important concept for handling those big fixed costs. You see, you don't count the full $1,000 for your hives in the very first year. Instead, you spread that cost out over how long you expect them to last. So if they last for 10 years, you only account for $100 of their cost each year. This gives you a way more accurate picture of your real yearly expenses. So, once you've spread out the costs for all your big fixed items, you just add that to your regular annual costs, like the bee feed and transportation. And that sum gives you one final critical number, your total annual costs. This is the number we're going to plug right into our profit formula. And here we go, the grand finale. This is where it all comes together. We take our total return,
We subtract the total annual costs we just figured out, and the result? Well, that's our final profit.
And look at that. For our 100 hive example, the numbers look pretty good. After running the calculations, it's clear that this hypothetical project would actually be profitable. We've gone from just a vague idea to a concrete answer backed up by numbers. So let's just recap the whole thing, because it really is this simple. Step 1, calculate all of your costs, remembering to separate the fixed ones from the annual ones. Step 2, make a realistic estimate of your total income, your return. And step 3, subtract the costs from the return to find your profit. That is the entire framework.
So you now have a powerful but really simple tool to evaluate pretty much any business idea you can dream up. The only question left is, what project will you run the numbers on next? Whether it's beekeeping or something else entirely, you now have the roadmap to figure out if it can be a financial success.